Howdy folks, and welcome back to Mingles with Jingles, episode 3. Unfortunately today I have to start off with a little bit of bad news, or an explanation. Think of it as an explanation. For those of you who follow the channel primarily for the War Thunder content, there hasn't been a lot of War Thunder content lately, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, I have been having the most absolute shit time playing War Thunder lately, and it's been for all sorts of reasons. If I'm not getting rammed out of the sky, and I'm not saying deliberately rammed, but if you kill me by recklessly flying into me, I'm just as dead as if you did it on purpose. And these aircraft are not cheap to repair. Or I'm getting killed by friendly fire, or the second I get recognised, you little monkeys are ganging up on me. And the first time I get shot down, or shoot somebody down, and such shot down by Jingles appears in chat, you just see the chat box lighting up. Oh my god, it's Jingles. And then within 30 seconds I've suddenly grown a unshakable tail of 6 enemy aircraft. And when that happens, I just have to exit the battle, and that screws my team because they're now down 5 or 6 aircraft. Because I'm not playing anymore, and I have to take my chance with a shit team lottery and the random battle button again. And it's relentless. It's absolutely bloody relentless. And it means that I haven't had any War Thunder content worth putting on YouTube in weeks. I just cannot get a good game. And unfortunately, it's mostly your fault. You guys keep jumping all over me every time you spot me in game, and you can't complain that there's no War Thunder videos up on the channel. I can't get a good War Thunder video because you guys will not leave me alone when I'm playing. If you're not spamming me with PMs, you're ganging up on me the second you spot me in game. So if you're wondering why there's hardly any War Thunder content on the channel, you've got nobody to blame but yourselves. And that leads us on to the second thing, which is that I'm not going to be live streaming War Thunder anymore with Origin and the rest of the Hotbox Gaming guys on Saturday nights, and it's kind of related to the first issue. It's totally related to the first issue. There's no problem with Origin. He's a great guy, and if you guys want to watch some quality War Thunder live streaming, I recommend you still tune in on Saturday nights. Unfortunately, when I'm live streaming with him, there are 500 of you sitting there on the live stream with your fingers poised over the join battle button, deliberately trying to get into the same games that we're playing so that you can hunt me down and kill me. Call me strange, but that's not fun. And more importantly, it sucks to watch. So again, another reason why you haven't seen anything worth watching as far as War Thunder goes on the channel for weeks, and it's basically your fault. Sorry, but there it is. Now, several of you have mentioned in the past that all I need to do is change my name, and that would make the problem go away. Well, it wouldn't, for 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons. 1, it's a pain in the arse. That's not the main reason. 2, if I'm live streaming, it's got to be pretty bloody obvious who I am. That's the reason I'm there. And 3, some of you cheeky little monkeys have figured out how to get around that. And this leads me onto the War Thunder press account. As you know, Clan of Gamers have managed to organise a War Thunder press account so that I can review various aircraft in the game for them and for you guys. So that's good stuff. As you also know, Gaijin Entertainment don't want the name associated with the press account being made public. So at first I tried to obscure the name, but I always missed something, and there's 55,000 of you amateur internet detectives out there, so I knew I was onto a loser there. So what I decided I was going to do was every time I record some video, before I upload the video, I go and I change the name of the press account, so that the next time I'm online, you guys have seen the video, you've seen the old name, you don't know what the new name of the account is, and I thought that would be fine. Well, so I thought. Some of you have figured out, and I think I know how you did it, but obviously I don't want to blurt it out in the middle of this video, or you'll all be doing it, but some of you have figured out how to get past that, and I'm still getting PM'd by people desperate to show me how clever they are. I log on to the press account under a new name, and instantly there's 3 PMs sitting there waiting for me going, "Hello, Jingles. Well, congratulations. You are very, very intelligent. You were also added to my blacklist so that you can no longer PM me on the press account, because what you fucking retards are doing is the equivalent of walking up to a drug enforcement agency narcotics agent while undercover and in conversation with a gang of drug lords and addressing him by his real name. Are you retarded? Are you trying to get the account taken off me? What the fuck is wrong with you?" So, I mean, I apologise to the rest of you, the overwhelming majority of you guys who are not window-licking morons, but I'm probably going to lose the press account. I can see it coming. If people can do something, they are going to do it. It's just the nature of the internet. So I'm probably not going to be able to continue bringing you reviews, previews of all those rare aircraft that you hardly ever see anymore. You know, the F-86 Sabre, the MiG-15, and so on and so on. It's just a matter of time before somebody wrecks it for everyone. Sorry, but, you know, that's just the way it is. Anyway, that's enough of angry Jingles. Don't worry, he's gone. You can all come back out. Happy Jingles is here. Happy Jingles is ready to start answering your questions. So, let's see. Who's first? There were, by the way, over 1,100 comments on the last Mingles with Jingles video, so you should probably be aware that the chances of me answering your specific question are fairly slim. But let's have a go. Let's get started. So the first question of this week comes from I Was Some Guy. He wants to know, if there was one gamer I could play with, who would it be and why? Right, now I had to cheat a bit, or I'm going to cheat a bit, and I'm going to answer this one twice. For War Thunder, I'd like to play with RAM JB. Some of you may already follow his channel. He's a total propeller head flight sim nut. He's really, really, really good. He's far better than I am. He really, really knows how to make the most out of dogfighters, energy fighters, boom and zoomers, you name it. He knows how to play them much, much better than I do. His knowledge of these aircraft is encyclopedic. I mean, you'd think I know a bit about the historical aircraft in this game. I am a rank amateur compared to this guy. And I love his accent. I love his Spanish accent. Some of you have gone so far as to say that you leave my videos running in the background when you're going to sleep so that the sound of my voice can carry you off to your dreams. I feel the same way about listening to Ram JB. So, out of the War Thunder players that I haven't already played with, like Nethervoid, Devil Dog Gamer, Krebs, and so on, definitely Ram JB, top of my list. When it comes to World of Tanks, the guy that I most wanted to play with, I do play with every week, Quickie Baby. But again, out of the list of prominent World of Tanks players that I have not yet played with, I would have to say Sidestrafe. And unfortunately, I probably never will get to play with Sidestrafe because he plays on the North American server and I play on the EU server. I suppose it's entirely possible that the next time there's a test server up, in fact, you know what, I might just have to approach old Sidestrafe and see if I can get a couple of games with him next time there's a World of Tanks test server up. So for patch 8.6, we'll see if we can do that. I'll see if he's up for it. Ed Francis wants to know, Jingles, if there was one thing that you could change in World of Tanks and War Thunder, what would it be? That's an easy one. I would have a Do Not Disturb mode in the chat systems of both games. Oh wait, you were serious? Oh, okay. Right, let's have a think. I would change War Thunder so that the consequences of ramming, whether it be deliberate, accidental, or just reckless, were so severe that you would go to any lengths to avoid colliding with another aircraft. I would hammer people with financial penalties so severe that they wouldn't be able to afford another aircraft for a month. And no, I'm not joking. That's what I would do in War Thunder. I don't expect to see it happen anytime soon, but hey, you asked, I answered. Now, what would I do in World of Tanks? I was tempted to say remove gold ammunition, premium ammunition, remove it from the game completely. However, the fact that you can now buy premium ammunition with credits kind of means that the game isn't as pay to win as you might like to think it is, because anybody who grinds away enough can now afford to use a stock of premium ammunition on certain tanks. But it's still bloody frustrating. I mean, I've had games where I've come around a corner in a town in my E100 to find a T-54 medium tank in front of me, and I know that if I angle my E100 well, that T-54 with his D-54 gun cannot penetrate. So I do angle my armour, and then I'll just watch him put a shell right through my bloody gun mantlet, the single thickest part of the armour on the tank, because he doesn't need to aim. He just, okay, fine, you've angled your tank, I'll just aim for the flat part, and no matter what I do, it's going to go through. It's frustrating, but anybody can now use gold ammo in World of Tanks. So there's that. What I would like to see happen in World of Tanks is limiting the number of artillery in a game to no more than 3 per side. That would be one thing that I would change in a heartbeat in World of Tanks. I'm going to cheat again slightly. Another thing I'd like to do in World of Tanks is, you see this KV-2 behind my Jagdpanzer, behind my Jagdtiger? What's this? What's this prick? Oh, he's going to do it again. And my tracks have blown off, and I couldn't get out of the way because this fucking idiot was jammed up my arse. And any second now. I'm dead. So what I would like to do in World of Tanks is find out where that KV-2 driver lives, go to his house, grab him by the balls, twist, squeeze, and tell him I'm not going to let go until he whistles the national anthem. The Hiltonator wants to know, in my opinion, what's the best aircraft in War Thunder? Well, it's not a matter of opinion, it's a fact. The Yak-9T. And I'll show you what I mean. You ready for this? Here's one shot from the Yak-9T. Here he comes. There. See that? One shot. It's not a crit. He didn't kill the pilot. One shot into the fuselage. That is a dead BF-109. That was an instant kill. I actually have a Yak-9T, but I don't fly it. I don't fly it because I still have a few shreds of self-respect. It flies like a UFO. It's made out of hardened Sovietidium. It's almost impossible to kill, and it just has to point its gun in your general direction and you disintegrate and fall out of the sky. It's almost getting to the stage where if I see Yak-9Ts on the enemy team, I'll just quit the game. And that would be hilarious, wouldn't it? People flying Yak-9Ts had nobody to fly against but other Yak-9Ts. In a perfect world, that's what would happen, but unfortunately we don't live in a perfect world, and we have to put up with it until they fix the ridiculous flight characteristics of that fucking aircraft. It is absolutely absurd. And don't think for a second that Gaijin aren't aware of this. They recently introduced a hotfix that patched the overheat characteristics of certain of the cannons in the game. The Yak-9T's 37mm autocannon being the prime example. Now that gun will overheat and jam if it fires more than 4 shots in a row. Give me a break. It doesn't need to fire more than 5 shots in a row. It only needs to fire 1. We just saw it happen. So there you go, best aircraft in the game, Yak-9T, easy. Next question from AVT Bro, and I like this question because he thinks it's going to provoke a rant of epic proportions. Sorry, you've already had your Jingles rant quota for the day, I'm afraid. His question is this: do you think the matchmaker in World of Tanks is unbalanced, and if so, how would you fix it? No, I don't think the matchmaker in World of Tanks is unbalanced. Next. Well, okay, you deserve a bit more than that. I genuinely do not think the matchmaking is unbalanced in World of Tanks. Well, I'm not going to say at all. Maybe just a little. I think for the majority, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. You guys have to realise that prior to patch, I think it was either 7.4 or 7.5, the average matchmaking spread was 3 tiers up and down. That meant, at the moment, it's 2 tiers. If you're driving a tier 4, you can be placed in battle with tanks up to tier 6. If you're driving a tier 6, you can be placed in battle with tanks up to tier 8. Prior to, I think it was patch 7.5, that was a 3-tier spread. Your tier 6 tanks could be placed in battle against tier 9s. So, you guys driving your Sherman Easy 8s, tier 6 medium tanks, you guys driving your ARL 44 tier 6 heavy tanks, could be expected to fight E75s. And it happened with monotonous regularity. And you could do it. It was bloody hard work. But in fact, coming up on screen now, for those of you who were interested, bookmark it, watch it later, is a game I played in my ARL 44 French tier 6 heavy tank on Malinovka, and it was a tier 9 game in a tier 6 heavy tank. And I walked away from that with 3 kills and Confederate. So it was doable. And that was prior to the matchmaking change. Now the biggest thing you have to face is 2 tiers higher than you. And if you still need somebody to hold your hand and show you how to beat a tank 2 tiers higher than you, you haven't been playing World of Tanks long enough. Sorry, but that is my opinion on the matter. There isn't a tier 6 tank in the game that can't kill any tier 8 tank in the game. And so on, and so on, and so on. It's all about how you drive the bloody things. However, I'm sitting here, I'm sounding like the 4 Yorkshiremen Monty Python sketch. You kids today, you don't know you're born, and so on and so on. But I would... Oh, what you're watching there was actually a friendly fire kill. I've been having such a great time playing War Thunder lately. Anyway, back to World of Tanks and the matchmaking. The one issue of the matchmaking that I would change is tier 4 light tank matchmaking. Seriously, Wargaming, stop putting those poor bastards in tier 9 games. Scout tanks get harsh matchmaking. Your tier 5 light tanks, not every one of them, some of them get special matchmaking, but most tier 5 light tanks will have to play as scouts in tier 10 games. I don't have a problem with that, because most tier 5 light tanks and tier 6 light tanks and the new tier 7 light tanks make really, really good scouts in tier 10 and tier 9 games, and they're bloody dangerous tanks to have around in certainly tier 9 and sometimes tier 10 games, depending on the circumstances. But the tier 4 light tanks, please, seriously. Let's say you're in a Panzer 38 NA, right, and you're in a tier 9 game, and you're expected, because you get scout tank matchmaking, and you're expected to be the team's scout in a tier 9 game. Seriously? You've got Pattons and T-54s driving around, and you think the Panzer 38 is going to scout? It's not as fast. It has worse view range. It's just... Oh, seriously, no. Tier 4 light tanks are not high-tier scout tanks. It just... cap them at tier 8. I mean, tier 8's bad enough. It's still a 4-tier spread. But stop putting tier 4 light tanks in a tier 9 games. It's just not funny. It's not funny for the guy driving the tier 4 light tank. And it's just a waste of a slot for the team. The team don't want him there any more than he wants to be there. And there's nothing effective he can do. Every other tank in the game, well, every other tank in that tier 9 match is faster than him, better armoured, got a better gun. Some of them are even lower profile, and they've all got better view range. How is he supposed to scout? It's stupid. It just with that one exception, tier 4 light tank matchmaking, which is just ridiculous. Cap them at tier 8. A tier 4 light tank scouting in a tier 8 game can still be useful, but a tier 9 game, just no, stop doing it. It's just painful and it's not helping anybody. Next question comes from, and I hope I've pronounced this right, Jorit Polder, and he wants to know, Jingles, if you could fly one aircraft, drive one tank, what would it be? And this question got quite heavily voted up, so I feel as if I have to answer it. I suppose if I was American, the answer to that question would be the P-38 Lightning, or the P-51 Mustang, or the P-47 Thunderbolt. If I was Russian, my answer would probably be the Yak-7 or the Yak-1. But I'm English, so my answer has to be the Spitfire. And not just any Spitfire. The earlier versions of the Spitfire. I can remember Alex Henshaw, I don't remember him personally, I'm not quite that old. He was the chief test pilot at Castle Bromwich from 1940, and he was in charge of testing all the Spitfires that were built there. And I'm going to quote him here. He says, "I loved the Spitfire in all of their many versions, but I have to admit the later marks, although they were faster than the early ones, were also much heavier and didn't handle as well. You didn't have such positive control over them. One test of manoeuvrability was to throw her into a flick roll and see how many times she rolled. The Mark II or the Mark V, one got 2.5 flick rolls, but the Mark IX was heavier and you only got 1.5. With the later and still heavier versions, you got even less. So I would love, first of all, to learn how to fly, and secondly, to fly a Mark II Spitfire. As far as tanks go, you have to realise I grew up watching all the 1960s and 1970s Second World War movies. Movies like The Longest Day, Kelly's Heroes, A Bridge Too Far, The Battle of the Bulge. Just give me a Tiger. I hate to sound really, really obvious, but just let me drive a Tiger, just for a few hours. Let me shoot stuff with a Tiger. I mean, I wouldn't want to drive a Sherman, because the Shermans were the ones that got slaughtered by the Tigers. You know, any time you saw a Tiger in a Second World War movie when I was growing up, you knew somebody was going to get their ass kicked, and it wasn't going to be anybody German. The Germans were the arse kickers, the Americans and the British were the arse kickies, and it was the Tiger that was always laying down the hurt. So, and that was my aim when I started playing World of Tanks. Straight down the German tank line, give me a Tiger. That was all I cared about. So yeah, I'd love to be able to drive a Tiger for a few hours. That would be fantastic. And I think, you know, that's probably not going to come as a surprise to most of you. Tiger and Spitfire. Boring, obvious answers, but, you know, I am what I am. Psychofish13, he wants to know, are you going to do more Sniper Elite or Colonial Marines gameplay, and when's your next contest? So he's technically sneaking 2 questions in there, but I sneaked 2 answers into the last couple of questions, so we'll let him get away with it. Well, Sniper Elite V2, Aliens, Colonial Marines, nah, probably not. I think once you've seen somebody's brains explode from a sniper shot, once you've seen it, you know, you've seen it every time, and that's pretty much just what Sniper Elite does. I don't want to show too much of single player games, because it's the same experience for everybody. When you play a single player game, I mean, me playing through Aliens Colonial Marines is just the same as anybody else playing through Aliens Colonial Marines. There's a little bit more variation in Sniper Elite, but it's still pretty much the same as anybody else playing the game. Multiplayer gameplay, each game is different, so that's why I tend to concentrate more on multiplayer gameplay, games like War Thunder, games like World of Tanks. I certainly don't have an objection to doing some playthroughs of certain games. The reason I did, well, probably more Skyrim than any other game that isn't World of Tanks or War Thunder, was because my version of Skyrim looks different to anybody else's version of Skyrim because of the amount of mods that I've used in the game. And it wasn't so much a hello, this is Skyrim series as hello, this is my Skyrim series. So that's why I featured quite a bit of Skyrim content, and I need to finish that off as well. As for contests, yes, definitely going to be doing more contests with bigger prizes. For example, the next World of Tanks contest I do, I'm probably going to be giving away some tier 8 premiums, things like that. War Thunder contests, different matter. Very, very difficult to do a War Thunder contest, and the reason it's very difficult to do a War Thunder contest is because the replay system in War Thunder is absolutely fantastic for putting together gorgeous looking movies like this, but it is a heap of shit for running anything where you need to know exactly who killed who, because it just doesn't show you that. You're seeing me flying this B-25 around. You'll be interested to know that before I got this thing shot down in this particular clip, I got 5 air kills. But you couldn't tell that from watching the replay, because it doesn't give you that kind of information. You don't know whether I got a kill, whether I got an assist. You can't see how many ground targets I hit unless the camera is actually showing the ground targets at the time. You know, it's totally impractical to do a War Thunder contest the way I can easily do a World of Tanks contest. Hell, I don't even need to look at a World of Tanks replay. If my World of Tanks contest is who's done the most damage in a game, I don't even need to open the replays. I have software that'll analyse the replay file and tell me how much damage you did. Nothing exists like that. Just using that as an example, not saying that's what I'm going to do, but nothing exists like that for War Thunder. In War Thunder, even if I were to watch every single frame of your replay, I wouldn't be able to tell exactly what you'd done in the game. So don't hold your breath waiting for any War Thunder contests anytime soon. It's just not practical given the current state of the War Thunder replay system. While we're on the subject, stop sending me your War Thunder replays. I'm never going to look at them for exactly the same reasons. I just cannot tell what you've done in a game by watching a War Thunder replay. It isn't specific enough, I'm afraid. But World of Tanks contests, yeah, definitely. How many have I done now? 2? Yeah, there'll be another one coming sooner or later. Probably sooner rather than later. We shall see. And as I said, there's going to be some major prizes given away in the next one. The prizes have been getting bigger and bigger as the number of subscribers go up and up, because with more subscribers I can afford to give away better prizes. So yeah, the next World of Tanks contest I'm going to be giving away some tier 8 premiums, definitely. No idea what I'm going to do for the contest yet. I'm sure I'll think of something. I'm sure you guys will help me think of something. Right, well, we're doing well this week. We're half an hour almost into the video and I've answered more than 3 questions, so I'm already doing better than last week. But I need to wrap things up, so another story from my military days, which you lot seem to enjoy so much. And this one's a bit funnier and certainly lighter in tone than the last one. And this is to do with a guy that I used to know when I was in the military. He was a staff sergeant in the army. Obviously I was in the Navy and I worked with him. Actually, technically I worked for him. He was my boss when I was at Fort Blockhouse. And I know that because I'm giving away all these little bits and pieces of my past, some of you guys are saying, oh, you were in Gosport. I live in Gosport. You know, or guys, ex-military, security conscious. I'm not giving away, you know, I'm not giving away where I currently live. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Certainly not on the internet, and I'm certainly not giving away information about other military friends who may or may not be doing things that require them to keep their address secret. So, guys, please seriously stop asking. Personal security, you know, it's a serious subject. Anyway, on to the point of the story. Sorry to hit you with a bummer, but on to the point of the story. And it is a funny story. Yes, where was I? Terry, Army Staff Sergeant. He has actually started playing World of Tanks. And those of you who saw my Indian Panzer video on World of Tanks will already have heard the first part of this story. But basically, he recognised my voice on YouTube and sent me a PM asking, are you, by any chance, so-and-so from such and such? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, who are you? Do I owe you money? He's like, you silly old bastard, it's me, Terry. I was like, oh my God, where have you been? I hadn't seen him in years. Cut a long story short, Terry plays World of Tanks. Terry is, I haven't seen him in ages, and now we're back in touch, and it's great. But the story I wanted to tell you was about Terry, and when I worked with him at Fort Blockhouse in Gosport. Fort Blockhouse is a joint service establishment. Well, technically it's a Navy establishment, but all 3 services operate from there. And it administers the medical training facilities around Gosport that train all 3 of the services, nurses and medics and so on and so on and so on. So I was running the Navy section. We had an Army Corporal running the Army section. There were 2 Army Corporals, although one of them was actually in charge of the section. And we had the Royal Air Force Sergeant who was running the Air Force section. And Terry was assigned to Fort Blockhouse as the office manager, the guy in charge of the office, working directly under a Royal Air Force Flight Lieutenant. That was Flight Lieutenant Joliffe in the time that I was there. He was fantastic. I've never met, or maybe I've just been lucky, I've never met a Royal Air Force officer who wasn't fantastic, and Flight Lieutenant Joliffe was no exception. But Terry was the guy who ran the day-to-day workings of the office. Flight Lieutenant Joliffe was just responsible for everything. But the thing was, Terry was an infantry staff sergeant, right? And this was a unit administration office. Right? He didn't have a clue about how to be a clerk, but because he was in his last posting, he was allowed to choose where he wanted to work. And Terry would, he'd had enough of working for a living. He was in his last posting in the army. He just wanted someplace quiet where he could sit on the internet all day and not be bothered by anything. and Fort Blockhouse suited his needs just fine. And Terry was the best kind of boss you could ever have, because you know whenever you get a new boss somewhere, they always, I don't know what the hell is going on, but it's like they have to mark their territory by changing something. Picking something that's worked since forever and changing it, just so they can say that, yeah, I'm in charge, check this out, this is what I've done. Or they fire somebody, not because somebody needs firing, but because they have to stamp their seal of approval, their seal of authority on what's going on. They always have to fuck around with stuff and change something just to show that they're the boss. You didn't get any of that shit with Terry, right? He knew he wasn't a clerk. He knew he didn't know the first thing about running an admin office. And he didn't even try. He spent his first week there just getting to know the various section heads and making sure he could trust them. And once he was sure that he could trust everybody, he called a staff meeting and he said, right, you all know me by now, been here a week, my name's Terry, I'm the chief clerk, but I'm not a clerk, right? I'm an infantier. So you all seem like a good bunch, you all seem like you've got your hands, you're on top of what needs doing here, so I'm not going to interfere. If you need me to shout at anybody, at the end of the office down there, just let me know, and I'll kick the crap out of anybody who needs the crap kicked out of them. Other than that, I don't expect to have to give you any trouble, and I don't expect you to give me any trouble. And that was it. And that was fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better boss. Now, and Terry pretty much did spend every waking hour of the working day sitting at his desk, browsing eBay, buying bits of Land Rovers. And that was great. He stayed out of our way, and so on and so on. But we also had, we weren't the only people working at Fort Blockhouse. We also had a logistics officer who was a Royal Navy Lieutenant Commander. And she was a lovely, lovely woman. I must make this absolutely clear. She really was just an incredibly nice woman. But she was very nervous about Terry. Now, the thing you have to know about Terry is, first and foremost, Terry was an infantry staff sergeant. Right, and you don't make it to the rank of staff sergeant in an infantry regiment without at least being able to do a damn convincing impression of somebody with whom you do not fuck. And Terry was and still is a genuinely nice guy, but he could turn the 1,000-yard stare on when he needed to, which is an invaluable skill when you plan to spend 6 months to a year of your time buying bits of Land Rovers on eBay, and you don't want anybody to mess around with that plan. And so Terry knew that he needed to scare the logistics officer. And so every time the logistics officer came into the office, not because he was nasty or anything, but because he just didn't want to get bothered. And the logistics officer was the one person who could conceivably create problems for his browsing eBay all day lifestyle. Terry would just kind of radiate menace. It would just be little things like the logistics officer would come into the admin office and would nervously walk up to his desk, because he had to walk past his desk to get into the flight lieutenant's office. And she'd go, "Morning, Staff Sergeant." And Terry would just look up and narrow his eyes, and sort of nod slightly. And that would be all it would take to send this poor woman into a nervous lather. It really was quite cruel, but it was so funny. Well, Joel, the flight lieutenant, thought this was hilarious too. When I think of how we terrorised this poor woman, I almost feel guilty. When I say we, I was a passive observer. It was nothing to do with me. But anyway, this plan worked quite successfully for the first couple of months. But she eventually summoned up the courage to try to do something about it, and try to, get Terry to be more friendly and approachable to the customers. And to not spend so much of his time on eBay. It took a month to even muster the courage to go this far. And what she would do was, you would see that she'd pop through the door at the end of the office. She'd stick her head around the side of the door and she'd look. And if Terry was sitting at his desk, she'd scuttle off and go and find something else to do. And then she'd be back half an hour later. And if Terry and I were outside on a smoke break, she'd come in and go and speak to Joel. And she would try to, make it as quick as she could so she could get out. before Terry and I got back. Quite comical. Well, anyway, one day she caught Terry and I on a smoke break, and when we came back in, she was already in the flight lieutenant's office, so no problem. I went back to my desk, Terry went back to his, and she was in there for a few minutes more, and when she came out, her face was pale. It was as if she'd seen a ghost, and she normally tried to give Terry's desk a wide berth when she walked past him anyway, but this time she was practically backing up against the wall as she came out, and got out of the office as fast as you could move without actually breaking into a run. So straight away we knew something was up, and the second she was out of the office, Joel came out of his office at the bottom of our office, and he was pissing himself laughing, or trying not to. And he called Terry into his office, and then after about a minute, Terry suddenly started pissing himself laughing, and we're all sitting at our desk going, what the fuck's going on here? What's he done? So anyway, Terry comes out and he says, come on, we're going for another smoke. Got us outside, and he told me what had happened. Basically, the logistics officer had finally, taken a month, but she'd finally summoned the courage to confront Joel, who was Terry's immediate superior, about Terry's, the way she'd put it was, Joel, don't you feel that perhaps the staff sergeant isn't as friendly and approachable as he could be? And he does seem to spend an awful lot of his time just on the internet. So, and Joel knew where this was going, and Joel wanted a quiet life as much as anybody else, and he actually quite approved of Terry scaring the crap out of the logistics officer, because it meant that he didn't have to deal with her as often. And not that anybody, you have to understand, we're not saying that she was a nasty person or anything, or that she was a pain to deal with. She wasn't. She was really, really, really lovely, but Joel was a lazy bastard. He was in his last tour of service as well, and he just wanted a quiet life. And the less he had to deal with his boss, regardless of how nice she was, the better for him too. And it was a great arrangement for him, having Terry just growling at everybody when they came into the office, because it kept everybody off his back too. So he could see where this was going, and he knew he needed to nip this in the bud. So he sort of leaned forward and lowered his voice and sneaked a look out the window to make sure the staff sergeant wasn't overhearing anything. And he said, the thing you have to realise, Mom, is Terry's not a clerk. In fact, Terry's not even a normal person like you and I. Terry's a trained killer. And that poor woman was nervous about Terry before that. After that, she was absolutely terrified of him. And of course Terry thought that was hilarious, and he really played on it. From that moment on, if you thought it was bad before, he turned the menace up to 11 from that point on. And immediately after that incident, we didn't see her again for another week. And she used to come in every day to check in with Joel. From then on, we saw her maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And I should probably feel guilty for terrorising such a lovely woman the way we did, but it was just so fucking funny. So anyway, yeah, that's what I did in the Navy. So that was my mate Terry. Probably not the finest moment in his military career, but damn funny all the same. So, yeah, there we go. That's it for this week's Mingles with Jingles. Keep those questions coming in. If you want a chance of me answering one of your questions during next week's Mingles with Jingles, leave them in the comments. I do read them all, but, there's over 1,100 comments to the previous week's Mingles with Jingles. I can't possibly answer them all. I'll do my best, however, and I'll try to, as usual, answer the questions that I think I'm going to be able to give the most interesting answers to. As always, folks, watch your 6, take care on that battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.